And she said, no, Gareth, you're under my house now and my rules. And if you try and do anything about this, then I'll go to the police and I'll tell them that you raped me. And who do you think they're going to believe? Little old me or big old you? And that's the moment where I felt trapped.
So what was your life like before you met your ex?
I had a couple of long-term relationships, and which had all been fine and just kind of ended, amicably. I think at this point, I was hoping that I could meet the right person and settle down and finally, make a life for myself and, children and all of that. The best relationships I'd always been in has always been where I'd gone out and met somebody at a bar or at a club, and you kind of clicked that way. And I think the kind of dating game world has moved on from there now, and it has become like this kind of online phenomenon. It's very rare, I guess, you go out and meet somebody in a pub or in a club now. So yeah, I think that's how I kind of thought, well, I need to get myself back out there and put myself on one of these online apps again and see what comes out of it. I found my ex-girlfriend's profile on Plenty of Fish, and I ended up contacting her to ask her if she wanted to chat. So I think I just sent her a message just saying like, hi, how are you? You're very good looking, and are you looking for a relationship? Are you single? What are you on the app for, basically? And would love to chat some more with you. That was it, really, just to begin with. And then I think a day or two later, I had a reply saying, thanks for the kind message, and I'm not really sure what I'm here for at the moment, as a lot of people do say these days. But we'll see how things go. And I'm open for a chat. And then it just kind of moved from there.
And what did you do for your first time meeting?
It was just it was a normal meal. Like, we were chatting, laughing, joking, a few drinks. And, there was she was kind of very affectionate to begin with. So kind of, she was really I think I had my hands on the table, and she'd already kind of put her hands over and was touching my hands already, and stroking my hands type thing. So it was kind of wow, this is, she's been very, really affectionate and laughy and jokey and just being attentive. So I think that kind of took me a bit off guard, especially to begin with, because I would have thought that maybe we would have gone on a couple of dates first before it would have been so kind of overpowering with love. But to do it straight off the bat, I think that kind of took me aback a bit, but it also, I think, sucked me kind of in more as well.
And how did the relationship progress from there?
So, we went on a couple of dates after that, just normal, and then, started spending some time with her. Go to the movies, you go out for a dinner, you go for drinks you start, socializing a little bit, and it was just normal, as you would expect normally things to progress.
How quickly did you say to each other that you loved each other?
Probably maybe about 2 or 3 weeks into the relationship, so very, very early on. But I think it was more her trying to get it out of me, because she would say it to me, and then she would say, "Come on, now you need why are you saying this?" And I said, "Is this not a bit too early to say that?" And she was like, "It's never too early to say I love you." We'd probably been together maybe 3-4 months by this stage. Because I was still living at a different property at my own flat, she kind of said, "Well, look, you're spending all your time here. Why don't you kind of, rather than paying rent out onto a different property, then move in with me. You're spending all your time with me. It would make a lot more sense for you to pool your money here instead." And because I felt, things were going well, that it would work out for the long run, then it just felt like a natural next move. When I moved in, that's when things started to turn, I think. So shortly after I'd moved in, she said that I wasn't allowed to keep any of my belongings in the house. I kind of queried it to begin with and said, well, why? And she said, well, because you don't need all these things anyway. There's a lot of things here that are just excessive belongings. To which I said, well, no, a lot of these things are clothes and kind of some sentimental things. And she said, well, you can keep them, but they'll have to go in the garage. A few days later, she said, well, you've been spending a lot of your time here with me over the last few months, and now you're here living with me. So this is my house, it's my rules, and you need to pay me the back pay and the back rent from the time that you were here. So she demanded that I pay her £700 on the spot, and then for moving in with her and living with her moving forward, I would need to pay £700 rent money to her every month, on top of paying the rest of the bills, utility bills, council tax, etc. on top of that. And I kind of queried it and said at the time, look, don't you think we should be paying things 50-50 here? And she turned around to me and she said, no, Gareth, you're the man, you're the earner. Then it moved kind of on then from with the financial side of wanting to kind of have control of my bank account. And I kind of questioned that, said, well, this is not really, what if we should do that, then I should have sight of yours, we should be equal now, we're kind of living together. And she said, no, Gareth, you're under my house now and my rules. And if you try and do anything about this, then I'll go to the police and I'll tell them that you raped me. And who do you think they're going to believe? Little old me or big old you? And that's the moment where I felt trapped. From there, things just escalated. It started with the financial side, then it moved on to the kind of the physical side as well. So there was if things weren't going away, there was kicking, biting, scratching, clawing. As I said, I was always brought up never to hit a woman, so I was never going to do anything back. So yeah, I was hit with a glass candle holder across my nose, which has left me with a permanent scar just because she was having a bad day. It was the kind of isolation from friends, family, the not having a key. I couldn't shower or shave there, even though I was paying all the bills. If I did shower, if I was allowed to shower, should I say, I had to thoroughly disinfect the shower down each time. So I had to, if I could take a shower, I had to spend, and she would time me, I had to spend a minimum of an hour in there cleaning it afterwards with bleach and disinfectant and completely making sure that that shower was completely sparkling after I'd left it.
How often were you allowed to shower?
Once every 2 weeks, if I was lucky. So I used to sneak down the gym to try and shower. But she would, when she would kind of kick me out of the house, because I was only allowed to be in the house when she was there, I'd tried to kind of sneak some clothes into my laptop bag so I could go down to the gym and shower. But she would frisk my bag on the way out and frisk me before I was kind of forced to leave the house each time to check that I wasn't taking stuff. And if I had tried to sneak some shower stuff in, from the minimal clothes I was allowed to keep in the house, she would throw them on the floor and just kick me out anyway, so I couldn't then shower. And I suppose the biggest one was not being able to use the toilet. So, I wasn't allowed to defecate in the house. So if I needed to go, I was made to hold it in and walk to the local pub or supermarket to go. There was a couple of times I nearly didn't make it.
How did you feel during that time when you weren't even allowed to go to the loo in your own house?
I felt demoralised. I started feeling, put down because I was always being belittled, and it was always humiliation as well.
What were the things that she said to you during the course of your relationship? What were the ways in which she belittled you?
Well, because the sex became more and more demanding. So after I moved in, it maybe went from 2-3 times a day to maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day at times. And then if I couldn't perform, it was around my manhood, and it was kind of being belittled on that side. And it was kind of the constant, oh, look at this chap, look how younger he is. She would tell me about, oh, you're the older one in this relationship, Gareth, and you're the, my body clock is ticking, and I want to get pregnant, and we need to get this baby sorted, and why can't you do this? And if I couldn't perform, then I was made to sleep on the floor with no covers on, with the window open, as kind of a punishment for it. And she kept telling me I had halitosis and bad breath all the time, so I kept believing it. And then she stopped believing it, but she said, I'm not going to kiss you anymore unless you drink at least half a bottle of mouthwash and eat some toothpaste, because that's how bad your breath is. So I then had to drink mouthwash and eat toothpaste before I could kiss her. But yeah, it was the only way that because I wanted to kind of still try to show that love towards her, I felt that I have no choice but to do it.
How often did she make you drink mouthwash?
2-3 times a week. Sometimes every other day.
And tell me a bit about the food and her control of you eating.
With the food stuff, so basically she'd said that I need to lose weight, that I was, a fat, overweight whale, and that I needed to get down to, I can't remember exactly, but it was kind of under 14 stone. I ended up losing 4.5 stone in 2 months, because she said to me, well, the only way to get around losing weight, Gareth, when I'd said, well, isn't it more about healthy eating and exercise? She said, no, the way you get around losing weight is not eating. I'm not stopping you from eating, but you're only going to eat what I eat and when I eat, and I better not catch you doing anything more than that. The thing is if I did get to eat something, it never really sat with me, because I think my stomach had shrunk so much that I just couldn't really digest food then. And plus I knew that if I did eat something, I couldn't go to the toilet anyway. So I just kind of thought, well, I may as well just not eat, because I can't use the bathroom if I do. So, even if it is just a salad, what's the point? So.
What you're describing doesn't sound that kind of far off torture.
Yeah, I think when I look back on it now, I think, you think, how could you treat another human being this way? But that is the whole control and coercive side of things, because it was, after I moved in, it was sudden but subtle, and it's the mind tactic, and it's what happens to begin with, and it's the very highs or very lows. There was never any middle ground. It was either really, really good or it was really, really bad. I remember we were away for a weekend in London, and we'd gone into Harrods, and she said to me, we're not leaving this store, Gareth, unless you buy me something expensive. And I kind of felt as if, well, what am I supposed to do here? I can't, And she said, no, I'm telling you, we're not leaving this store until you buy me something really expensive. And I remember I was wearing a jumper at the time, and she clawed me through my jumper, my sweater, so much that my arm started bleeding and blood started coming out of my arm up through my coat, because that's so hard. She grabbed my grabbed my arm, and then I had to go and do it. So, yeah.
How much did you have to spend on the bag?
£2,000.
How did you feel after you'd done that?
I mean, I felt, what do you say, you know? I felt sad, really. My mum used to tell me, you're being treated like a dog. Like, you know, well, actually a dog, because we had a dog and the dog was actually better treated than I was. You know, I remember one incident where I was supposed to go to the library and work, and I'd snuck down to my mum's to go and see my parents, because I think they were getting worried about me. When I went down there, I think I still had a bruise on my arm, and my mum asked me the question and said, like, where did you get that bruise from? And I tried to play it off as, you know, I was nothing. And she said, no, you don't, like, the position of that bruise on your arm, I think I tried to say that, I'd knocked it into a door or something like that. And she said, no, but I can see there's a claw mark, like, next to it, like a fingernails mark. She knew more then, and it was happening, you know, more frequently. And my ex had found out because she'd said, like, you know, I was still getting constant messages all the time, constant phone calls, you know, where are you? And when she said to me, look, you can come back now, I'm home now, so I'll see you in 15 minutes. She tried ringing me, so I tried not answering. And then to which point she said, look, I know you with your mother, and if you are planning on coming back now, you're going to get a beating for it, because you didn't go where I told you to go, and you weren't there for as long as I told you to be there for, and you've been discovered and you've lied to me. So you're going to get punished for that. So I got back, and then I had to stand there while I got kicked in the groin. I got scratched at, kicked at, clawed at, and then just, yeah, punished for it, for not being where I was supposed to be when I was supposed to be there. So that's when I felt it got to the point where I couldn't stay in this relationship any longer. I kind of had my doubts, but I was thinking more and more like, I need to try and do something drastic here. And I remember her saying to me once, the way things are going here, like, you really need to get back in line again. I said, well, I haven't really done anything out of line. And she said something flippantly, like laughing, like, oh, well, you know, I might actually end up even killing you. After that point where she flippantly kind of said that to me, I started periodically taking screenshots of my phone and sending them of the messages and things off my phone, because she used to periodically go through my phone and delete things. So delete messages she sent to me. So I started doing it and sending them in secret to my mum. There were sometimes I didn't even sleep, because I tried to stay awake all night so I could send as many messages and things as I could to my mum, because I figured if something happens to me, then at least she's got the evidence.
And how did you get out of the relationship, Gareth?
So I knew that my ex was out at an appointment and that she would be out for around an hour. So I'd arranged to kind of meet my mum in secret to go for a coffee, because I think my mum was becoming more and more worried about me. My ex had returned home, and she'd noticed that there was a packet of crisps missing from the drawer, and messaged me and said, did I take these? So I messaged, did I take a packet of crisps? So I messaged back and said, yeah, you know, I just wanted to have something for my lunch. You know, I'd hardly eaten in the day. So was that okay? And she messaged me back and she said, no, absolutely not, you greedy, a load of expletives. And she said, you're definitely not eating again. So my mum saw that message ping up on my phone and burst into tears. And I thought, well, I can't put my family through this any longer. And then I obviously, when I felt sad, I think even more sad for the fact that, you know, my mum was broken down in tears in front of me and I didn't really know what to say or do. So I made a phone call to Mankind and I told them everything that was going on. And they said to me, this is all the signs of control and coercive behaviour and you need to get out and you need to, you know, do it sooner rather than later for your own safety. So the next day, I kind of had thought, right, this is time to do it. And I left with just the clothes on my back.
How did it feel to be out of the house and how did it feel to be away from her, free?
At first, it felt really weird because, I mean, after the police came round and I told them, they were shocked. And the police had said to me, when like the amount that it had accelerated, that it was one of the worst cases of control and coercive behaviour that they'd seen, and mainly because of how quickly things accelerated. I mean, we were only in a relationship for 8 months, and, you know, between the period of November to March or end of February, beginning of March time, you know, the amount of abuse that had happened during that time, they'd never seen anything like it.
What happened in terms of the police action?
So it took a while to kind of get the charge placed, and this is the thing, you know, is because your brain is conditioned for that person. So after I'd made the report, so I contacted her and said, look, you know, we don't need to do this to each other. You know, just give me my belongings back. Like, just get some help and we'll just go our separate ways and we'll just leave it as that. And then she got me arrested for harassment. So then I was arrested, placed on bail. So we were both placed on bail against each other, which is during that time when I started having really negative thoughts and I became suicidal. I'd tried to walk out into traffic quite a few times and tried to do things with a knife and stuff in the kitchen. I tried to cut myself and things like that, when luckily I'd gone back with my parents and they'd stopped me at the time. And then they said, look, you know, and I recognised at that point that I needed help. And then I went through therapy. So I went through psychotherapy, which took a long time. It took probably at least a year. Like, these things don't solve overnight. You know, I knew it was going to be a long road, but I knew I needed to seek that help, you know, to get myself back on track again. I went through the therapy, and then as I was doing that, then they decided to place the charge on her and drop the charge against me. I had to write numerous statements during that time. It was kind of reliving it all the time. It was kind of going through, reliving all the evidence, everything, you know. And I mean, luckily I had all the overwhelming evidence on, you know, through the text messages, emails, everything, the phone calls, the pictures that I managed to take of the cuts, the bruises.
And what was the conviction that she was given after the court trial?
So she was given so she pleaded guilty 3 days into the trial, and she was given a 2-year suspended sentence with a mandated 35-day rehabilitation order by the judge and a 5-year restraining order against me and my parents.
And how did you feel about that conviction?
At the time, I felt frustrated about it because I'd felt, you know, if this was a male, then would it have been the same outcome?
Why have you decided to share your story and speak out about your experience?
I think just because there is a stigmatism out there in society still, that, this can and does happen to men. And that if it can reach wider and can help somebody, both male and female, recognise the signs and symptoms of domestic abuse and control and coercive behaviour, to try and get out of a bad situation, try and reach out for help, then this is worthwhile doing it, My life is back on track again, so it shows you, I think, that you can come out of this, a better person. I'm at the stage now where I am starting to date again, and I am hopeful for the future.
He looked young, he did look young, but it was after the marriage that I knew that he was twice my age, so I was 15, he was 30. I knew who was going to rape me, and that's what happened. And it became like every single day